So, welcome to Democracy News Live. We're going to be having a discussion around the idea that does Startup India work? There are lots of companies that have, started out thinking that here is this new dream that we will set up a company out of India, manufacture out of India, and then take it global. Small entrepreneurs, young graduates, some with experience, some who have come back from the US to start companies here. But many of them have been complaining that it doesn't really work. Now I have with me Sahil. Sahil started his own product company doing medical devices, and it has been a massive challenge for him. Sahil, give me a sense, where did you start? What did you start doing in the beginning when you set up your company?
So we started our company about 3 years ago, and the idea was to try and build affordable medical technologies for India. We know that there's 80% of our population that doesn't have access to healthcare, and we wanted to be able to build telemedicine devices to reach this last mile. Now, one of the big challenges with healthcare technologies is that there's massive regulatory hurdles that you have to go through to get a product out in the market. And these regulatory certifications, they end up costing you money upwards of 20, 30, 40 lakhs, which is something which startups that are bootstrapped can't really afford.
So what is the product that you were making?
So we were building a telemonitoring device, patient monitoring device for telemedicine, where basically a patient who's sitting in a tier 2 or tier 3 town and doesn't have access to an intensive care specialist can have their vital signs streamed over lifetime to a doctor, and this doctor sitting remotely can help treat them and provide intervention-based care, which normally they wouldn't have access to.
So it is like a device you put on yourself and the doctor sitting remotely can see it. Did you build the device?
We built our device. It took us...
It is all ready, usable.
Our prototype, pretty much the stage where we need to start scaling up, is ready. But for us to be able to take it forward, we need to start getting certifications.
And how much does that certification cost?
The quotations that we've got have gone anywhere between 40 to 70 lakhs. And as a bootstrapped startup, it's almost impossible for us to have access to that kind of capital.
And what kind of certification? Does India provide this certification? Does the government of India even have a certification in place?
Not at the moment. When we go to hospitals, they ask for our product to be CE certified or FDA certified. CE is a European standard, so you have to comply with regulations that are coming out of Europe. And obviously the notified bodies that do the testing in India will charge you a premium for that.
Which means India does not have even certification of medical devices of its own. You need to know that your country actually can give you that certification. You have a device, I can take it to a place and say this is safe to use. It is all that it's doing is telling you this is my pulse, this is your temperature. But Government of India does not have a body that will actually help you certify a device. So you need to go to Europe or go to China to get this done. And it may cost as much as 1 crore of rupees to get one small certification on something that monitors your pulse.
Absolutely, and there has been talk for the last decade almost for a regulatory framework to come out in India. But I think the challenge for us is, as a startup, you can't just keep waiting. Right? If I need to get a certification, why can't the government help me pay for these tests? Provide these tests at a test lab which is government certified, so that I can at least reduce those costs. When I go to a private body, I'm paying an exorbitant amount of money.
What is Startup India for? Why doesn't it do this?
Honestly, I don't have an answer for that. I wish they would. I think that's something that definitely should be incorporated, because I think one of the things Startup India has looked at is saying we'll help with intellectual property. But as a company that wants to manufacture and build something, I do have to get certificates. I have to test my device, and that's where you spend a chunk of your money, not on the intellectual property. So that's where we need support, and that's where I feel like there is a gap right now.
Are people managing Startup India actually watching this? You need to actually figure out how certification is done, not just intellectual property. That's going to come much later. Until the product is not done, it's not certified, what is the point of an intellectual property right there? And so that is something which is a very essential part of them understanding. But they probably have done this because they know nobody's going to come to that, so they will not spend any money. Most of the startups will not make any money for the first 5 or 7 years. So they said 3-year holiday on tax. What is the point? It's great publicity, but doesn't help you really achieve anything. So if at all Startup India really has to take off, and it genuinely wants young people such as Sahil to stay in the country to produce great products, then do it. Otherwise, some of these guys are going to take their companies and go away. So, well, Sahil made his journey from trying to make a product to start making products for companies in the US because there is no way around it. So, tell me the journey, what happened there. You said, I need to buy components to produce these boards.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about it.
So, when we are trying to build a piece of hardware, especially in the electronic space, a lot of the raw materials we need to be imported into the country. When I was importing, raw semiconductor components, these would end up having a 28 or 30% import duty on them. Before GST came out, I would end up paying another 20 to 30% on excise when I used to get fabrication done in India. And as a small startup, there was no reason for me to have an excise license, so I wouldn't be able to get rebates on that. So again, for me to manufacture something, it's costing me an extra 60% on tax, versus if I was to order a finished product from China or from Germany and just sell it, I could buy it with a import duty of 7% or 10%, depending on what range it fell into. So where exactly is the incentive to make in India if you're charging me so much in terms of my import duties? Again, I think the government is working on changing these, but I need to survive as a startup. We've been around for 3 years, and it's difficult for us to just say we'll go another month and another month and another month and wait till it comes out. If there's no definitive plan, we should just move on to something else. But if there is a plan, please let us know.
Because you can't keep holding on. Well, anyways, you decided that you will make for people overseas. Once you made the board and you wanted to send it overseas to a client who was buying it from you, tell us what happened.
So we have an import-export license, and we've been importing raw materials using that import-export license for the last couple of years. So when we built a finished product and we were selling it back to our client in the States, I sent it via DHL using my import-export code, and I get a call back saying that I don't have a free sale certificate. As a new startup, I never knew there was something called a free sale certificate. So I go to DGFT, and DGFT says that to get the free sale certificate, first you need to have a license from the Export and Software Promotion Council of India. So I go and get that license, wait another 3 weeks, get my free sale certificate, finally ship it. But I ended up wasting 5 weeks of time to send that one product to a client, and I lost my client because my product was delayed by 5 weeks. If this kind of information was at least documented somewhere, if I knew about it, it would be helpful so I could plan accordingly. So I think it's not just the fact that the process is flawed. I feel like there's just not enough information for us. Maybe we need to do our research maybe in more detail when we start doing sales to foreign companies, but I do feel that if you have a platform like Startup India, you also need to educate startups about challenges that you may face, and this might be something
you went to DGFT and the guy said replace your file, buy a file from our little office too.
Apparently I had to buy one of those paper files from the stationery shop behind the DGFT office and put a 2 rupee stamp in there so they could send me the return letter with the certificate in it.
Isn't this a bit bizarre? You talk about being a modern country, you talk about being a country which, wants to take the next step forward, but not have systems in place.
I think these processes are being lost in the 1980s and the 1970s. We're talking about digital India, but still worried about the kind of file that we're using, a hardbound file. It baffles me.
If this has to survive, people such as yourself who are making products have to survive, what needs to happen?
I think there needs to obviously be education, not just for startups, but also for the policymakers. There's just not enough interaction between us. I'd love to be part of a platform where we can come and talk to you, especially in the healthcare community, which is so heavily regulated. We need a direct framework for healthcare. You can't bundle up every single startup under one platform. There needs to be very curated policies for each industry. And I think only once you do that and start to understand the challenges we are facing today, will you be able to mold something that helps us all in the future. Otherwise, you're just going to be making policies for PR, which is what it seems like is happening.
But if your own manufacturers, people who are actually innovating, aren't able to get their products to life, they aren't able to take it to market with money from here and do it fast enough, then I don't think you're succeeding. So you better have a policy, Government of India, to make sure that startups can survive and stay on in India. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks.